Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. The fit for this video is Miles Morales. Let's take a look at a video.
Jesus disappears from the Bible at the age of 12, right?
So it's not that Jesus disappears from the Bible, it's that stories about Jesus' life are created and added to the Bible selectively and in chunks.
Oh. He disappears, and where does he go? There's another text called the Gospel of the Holy 12. And in the Gospel of the Holy 12, which was omitted from the Bible.
So it's not that it was omitted from the Bible, it's that it did not exist in any way, shape, or form whatsoever until a man named Gideon Ousley came up with it in 1901. And Ousley was an advocate for vegetarianism, and so it is a vegetarian take on Jesus's life that was written at the very beginning of the 20th century, which is why it contains a bunch of ideologies and a bunch of perspectives that are 19th century in origin.
He goes to Egypt with his mother. Now, I've been there, and when I take my tour, when I take people on tour, I take them to the place where he slept. It's still there. It's a crypt now. It's like a place to go there. You know where it's at, right? It's Coptic Cairo. Correct. Right inside that church. They converted it into a church. He went there to study the Egyptian mysteries. He went there also to learn all about the ancient mystery schools.
So this is actually the Saints Sergius and Bacchus Church, which probably was originally constructed in the 4th century CE to commemorate these two saints. And tradition holds that the crypt at the very bottom of it is where Jesus hid out when Joseph and Mary fled from Herod, when Jesus was an infant. So this is not supposed to be where Jesus lived as a teenager or a young adult. It's certainly not where he went to study Egyptian mysteries. None of this is supported by absolutely any data whatsoever, and this even misrepresents the actual tradition of the Saints Sergius and Bacchus Church.
And then he left there and he went to Tibet. He went to go learn spirituality, and then he went down into India, learned about reincarnation and all of that.
So the stories about Jesus visiting Tibet and India begin to pop up in the 19th century as people who tried to make a name as explorers began telling stories about being shown these ancient manuscripts that told stories about Jesus visiting these places. And they've written down the translation, but no one has ever been able to track down any of the source texts from which they claim these translations came. And the translations all conveniently happen to talk about things that are of interest to the people of their own day in the 19th century. So they obviously originate in the 19th century.
And then he came back down, and he reappears in the biblical text when God says in the Bible, I called my son out of Egypt.
So this misrepresents this story. Matthew 2:15 says that Joseph and Mary returned after the death of Herod so that that scripture that I've called my son out of Egypt could be fulfilled. So that's entirely about Jesus's infancy. It has nothing to do with his young adulthood.
Reiki healing in Tibet, and energy healing with his hands.
Reiki healing originates in Japan at the beginning of the 20th century. So no, Jesus did not learn Reiki healing in Tibet at the beginning of the 1st century CE.
There's the records have been kept. It's complete records.
Yeah, that's absolutely not true.
And even the Dalai Lama confirmed that he was in Tibet at one time.
Again, these are just claims that are not supported by any data whatsoever.